Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we are unpacking a highly complex, multi-front geopolitical situation that is unfolding right now in the Middle East and way beyond. Based on recent breaking news reports, we're looking at a massive escalation involving the United States, Iran, and absolutely one of the most critical global shipping routes on the planet, the Strait of Hormuz. There is just an incredible amount of information to untangle here. We've got historic military maneuvers, intense global economic pressure, and even reported domestic security threats. So, to make sure we truly understand exactly what's happening and why it actually matters, we're going to break down the source material step by step. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to look at 5 clear areas today. Number 1, massive U.S. military strikes. 2, the battle for the Strait. 3, a historic sea drone deployment. 4, global geopolitical ripple effects. And 5, assessing threats at home. Starting with Section 1, massive U.S. military strikes. We're analyzing the recent wave of CENTCOM operations. Over 300. That is the staggering volume of Iranian regime targets that American forces hit over a single weekend. According to the broadcast, this wasn't just some small localized skirmish, right? It was a massive wave of strikes targeting critical infrastructure. We are talking about literally destroying missile and drone sites, vital naval assets, and ammunition depots. The broadcast notes that this is a very forceful pushback, designed to significantly degrade the equipment and anti-aircraft capabilities of these forces. It is a loud, clear message delivered through a truly staggering volume of ordnance. And this timeline builds a much larger picture, mapping out a really intense action-reaction cycle. It started on a Tuesday, when the U.S. carried out 4 distinct rounds of strikes inside Iran. Then, that escalated over the weekend with those 300-plus targets we just talked about. Well, in the following days, the source material reports that Iran actually retaliated. And what's really vital to understand here is the geography of that retaliation. You see, Iran didn't just fire back internally, they fired at U.S. targets located in neighboring countries. The reports explicitly name Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, and Oman. Now, Iran stated they were absolutely not targeting those host nations themselves, but specifically the U.S. assets positioned within their borders. Moving to Section 2, Battle for the Strait, the economic and naval standoff in Hormuz. To really grasp the economic warfare at play here, we need to define a term heavily used in the broadcast, the Iranian Blockade. Former President Donald Trump announced the reinstatement of this blockade, but we really need to understand what that actually means in this specific context. It's a highly targeted maneuver. It's designed to stop only Iranian ships or their customers from entering or leaving the strait. The crucial distinction here is that while it totally chokes off Iranian supply and economic movement, it deliberately leaves the supply route completely fair and open for all other countries. It's essentially a precise tool of economic warfare aimed squarely at the regime's pocketbook. And this brilliantly illustrates the 2 completely opposing stances at the core of this current standoff. On one side, you have the stated U.S. stance from former President Trump, declaring that the Strait of Hormuz is open and will absolutely remain open, with or without Iran's consent. On the exact opposite side, you have the Iranian stance. Iranian military officials have stated that under no circumstances will they allow the United States to manage the strait. Furthermore, they explicitly threatened to deal forcefully with what they call U.S. interference, warning that they would target commercial vessels and oil tankers traveling outside the specific routes designated by Iran. Expanding on that U.S. position, the broadcast highlights a very specific proposition from former President Trump regarding the management of this vital waterway. He stated, quote, "We will become the guardian of the straits. We should be reimbursed for that." The reporting notes that he suggested a 20% reimbursement from cargo ships. The argument here is that since the U.S. would be providing security for wealthy nations, they should be compensated for acting as the guardian or the guardian angel of the strait.
But listen, the threats in the strait are not just rhetorical. 4. That's the number of civilian commerce ships Iran has physically struck since Tuesday. These were vessels that were traveling outside the route designated by the Islamic Republic. The analysis in the source material stresses a hugely vital point here. We often hear about ships being hit, and we tend to just think of inanimate metal objects. But these are civilian merchant vessels operated by real mariners from all around the globe. When these ships are targeted, it puts innocent civilians in grave, deadly danger. And on a broader scale, disrupting this choke point ripples through global supply chains. That ultimately impacts prices at the pump and on the shelves right here at home. So there is a very real, very human cost to this naval standoff.
Section 3, Historic Sea Drone Deployment, a first in U.S. military history. Guys, this represents a massive military precedent. According to CENTCOM, this conflict marks the absolute first time in U.S. history that sea drones were actually used to attack an enemy. This is a fascinating leap in naval warfare technology, and it's happening right before our eyes in real time. So what exactly did these historic drones do? Well, they're classified as one-way attack drones. The broadcast details their specific targets. They successfully struck a port facility, a ship repair facility, and incredibly, even a submarine. It is a highly precise and devastating application of new tech. But what's also super fascinating is the domestic origin of this hardware. The source notes these exact sea drones are manufactured by a company based right in the Texas-Louisiana area. Even more interesting, similar sea drone technology from this very manufacturer had previously been used for rescue operations when U.S. pilots went down. Now that same foundational tech has been adapted into a historic offensive weapon.
On to Section 4, Global Geopolitical Ripple Effects, How International Actors Are Responding.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it maps out the active international participation. This isn't happening in a vacuum. According to the broadcast's analysts, Iran isn't just sitting back during lulls in the fighting. They are actively rearming. And where are those arms coming from? Well, the report points directly to Russia and China. The analysis claims that Russia and China are not only supplying arms, but providing advanced targeting data to help Iran strike regional headquarters in places like Bahrain, Kuwait, or Saudi Arabia. And then there is Cuba. The broadcast highlights reports that Cuba is actually hosting foreign drones. Which brings the threat matrix uncomfortably close to home. 90. That is exactly how many miles separate Key West, Florida from the coast of Cuba. The source material emphasizes a severe concern regarding the U.S. southern flank. There are reported to be hundreds of drones stationed in Cuba right now, and given that Cuba's government is allied with nations like China and Russia, who, as we just discussed, are actively enabling Iran, the broadcast highlights these drones as a massive potential threat sitting just 90 miles off the American coast. It's a really stark reminder that international geopolitics can literally arrive right at your doorstep. Finally, Section 5, Assessing Threats at Home, Domestic Security and Intelligence Responses. So the crucial point is how U.S. intelligence agencies are actually reacting to the overflow of this conflict. The broadcast reported on an alleged Iranian assassination plot against former President Trump. When Fox News reached out to the U.S. Secret Service for a response regarding this specific threat, the agency provided a carefully worded statement. While refusing to confirm or comment on specific intelligence matters, they stated, quote, "We consume information on a global level to effectively execute our global operations." They emphasized that their most important responsibility is safeguarding their protectees. The source analysis suggests that given this global threat matrix, the former president is likely high on the target lists of foreign adversaries. That requires intense global intelligence gathering by the Secret Service to prevent any domestic attacks. Wow, okay, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the sheer volume of U.S. airstrikes to the economic chokehold in the Strait of Hormuz, the historic first use of sea drones, the involvement of global superpowers, right down to potential threats near our own borders. It is a deeply interconnected, massive puzzle. So I want to leave you with this question to really think about. With military, economic, and domestic fronts all escalating simultaneously, how will this multi-layered conflict unfold next? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep asking questions, and I will see you next time as we decode the next big story.